All right, everybody. It is 10:30, so I am going to go ahead and get us started here. You guys are joining the Cultivating Leaders presentation, Creating Opportunities that Empower Student Athletes to Lead. And the presentation will be presented by Emily DeReal and Whitley Bradley. If you have questions throughout the presentation, we were saving them for the end of the presentation. I will be facilitating or looking in the chat for any questions that you might chime in there. If you guys are having any other issues, please chime in the chat and let me know so I can help fix that. If you would like to turn on live transcripts or closed captioning, that is also at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to hand it over to Whitley and Emily. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Priscilla. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen here. There we go. All right. Are y'all all able to see that? Okay, great. Awesome. So yeah, thank you all for taking time this morning to come to our presentation titled Cultivating Leaders, Creating Opportunities that Empower Student Athletes to Lead. Before we get into our game plan today, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Emily Del Real. I currently serve as the coordinator for student athlete engagement here at Texas A&M University. I did my undergraduate degree here at Texas A&M, and then I did grad school at Texas A&M as well. So I've been here for a while. I've been serving in this position for about a year full time now, but during grad school, I was here in a part-time role.
Hi, everybody. My name is Whitley Bradley. I'm also one of the coordinators here in student athlete engagement at Texas A&M. I'm in my third year here at Texas A&M. I started out as a scholastic supervisor for our women's basketball and women's equestrian programs. And I recently just transitioned into the SAE role last fall. So I'm excited to be in this role and excited for y'all to be here as well. So as we share our how we lead our students into being leaders within our programs. So today's game plan, these are some things we're gonna hit throughout our presentation. Of course, we're gonna go through our mission and what we strive to be and cultivate within our leaders and our student athletes. We're gonna go through our development, what development opportunities that lead our students into those leadership positions within their organizations. And then we'll touch on the student-led organizations that we both advise. And then we'll then go into the best practices and what kind of things we do as advisors of those organizations. And then what tools to success we utilize in order to continue these programs. And also how we can apply it to your institution and what ways we can help you apply that.
All right, so quickly before we head into it, we're going to go through our mission statement that we have here in our student athlete engagement unit. So it is to educate, equip, and empower student athletes in preparation for life after graduation. So we kind of have three pillars that we go off of. So first is our educate pillar, which is where we focus on our personal and professional development for student athletes. Equip, where we focus on preparing student athletes for that transition into life after graduation. And then our empowering pillar, which is our leadership development, which is where we focus on cultivating leaders, which is kind of the bulk of what today's presentation will be about. So just to quickly go through a few leadership development opportunities that we have for student athletes currently. Is our Hullabaloo U First Year Experience program. So this is a program where all freshmen students on campus here at Texas A&M are required to take this course. We've been fortunate enough to have a student athlete section at our institution. So through this, they kind of are able to take courses on freshman student athletes are able to take a course on how to transition into life in college. What's special about the student athlete section is that they're able to learn about all the, not only the campus resources that they have here at Texas A&M, but also the athletic resources that they have. So within this course, each each section is assigned a peer mentor. And so that's where we have the opportunity to have a student athlete serve within that role. So a peer mentor is someone that is able to kind of act as a mentor for freshman student athletes, knowing that they've been there in the past before, and they can kind of speak to their own experience of what their freshman year was like at Texas A&M, not only as a student, but also as an athlete, and what that transition looked like for them. So in the summer, we have the bulk of our peer mentors. So we have 4 sections. So we get to have 4 peer mentors. In the fall, we have 2. And in the spring semester, we have 1 peer mentor for those courses. And then kind of following along that first year experience, we have something called Traditions Night here at Texas A&M. So through a partnership that we have with the Office of Extended Orientation at A&M, this was created in order to help new student athletes have a sense of belonging here at A&M. There is a lot of culture and history and traditions at our school, so we want to make sure that they're knowledgeable about those things, and they feel pride, a sense of pride when they come into A&M, and they get that same experience that on-campus students have when they go to their own camps. So this is another leadership development opportunity because student athletes run this program. So there is a 4-member director staff, and so they're in charge of, the logistics of it, making sure the Traditions Night is ran really, really well. They do a campus tour. They, put in activities within Traditions Night in order to get student athletes that community with current student athletes. There's consistent meetings that they have throughout the year that they plan in order to prepare for Traditions Night that occurs in August. On top of that, they have 30 to 40 additional huddle leaders, which are student athletes that are in charge of specific freshmen or transfer students during that night. Those huddle leaders also go through trainings in the spring semester in order to feel equipped for whenever the fall comes and they do Traditions Night. This group also has athletics and campus support. They have an advisor from the athletics department that kind of helps them organize this event as well.
Another program that we have our students involved in, and a lot of our freshmen get involved in this program from the beginning, is our Horizons Performance Emerging Leaders program. It's our leadership program. It's a year-long program that focuses on goal setting, communication styles, how to manage conflict within your team, and just how to develop into that team leader that they're striving to be. The year-long sessions are broken up into 3. So we'll have our fall sessions, we'll have 3 of them, where they'll learn about who they are and how they can lead. So we'll always start with a DISC assessment, always just to see like how their leadership styles are and what kind of person they are, so they can learn about that. So they know, okay, my teammate might not be the same, have the same leadership style as I do. How do I, adjust to that? So just owning, first session is owning your own outcome. You got to own it. You got to learn how to own different things, different outcomes, learning how to collaborate with others and communicate with others, which is very important. And we know, like, as student athletes, the toughest part for them is probably communicating, not so much the collaborating, because a lot of them are in teams, but the communication part is something we really strive for them to be better at. And then just plotting their own path. We want to teach them that their path to success might not be like everyone else's path to success. So we want to make sure that we teach them those values. And then once they finish their spring sessions, their fall sessions, they'll have their spring sessions, which they'll be more like team related leadership style sessions. So how to build trust within your team and cohesion, how to be a leader, that leader that you want to be. There's different type of leadership styles. So finding that leadership style that fits you and your team. And then building a learning organization. We always end the session, the Emerging Leaders program, with an AAR and after action review, so that they can, ultimately bring that to the table or bring that to their teams or whatever programs that they decide to be a part of. It's kind of like a SWOT analysis. So just teaching them those values in order to build a team and know that it's not just about them, it's about learning how others proceed also.
Awesome. And so now we're going to head into the actual student athlete led organizations that we currently have at our institution. So one of them being SAC, which is a pretty familiar organization throughout a lot of campuses. So SAC is our student athlete advisory committee. So this allows student athletes to represent Texas A&M within the athletics department, the SEC and NCAA. Through this, they are able to gain professional development skills, leadership skills, and learn about campus and community resources that are available to students. So our executive board here has 7 members of 7 different roles. So we have a president, and then the rest of the executive board are vice presidents. So we have 2 VPs of selfless service. We have a VP of diversity and inclusion, a VP for records and finance, a VP of marketing and communication, and a VP of student athlete development. So along with the executive board, we have 2 to 4 team representatives. So we make sure that all teams are represented through SAC. So SAC has 1 meeting a month. So they meet on the first week of each month to kind of discuss what's going on campus within the SEC, NCAA, what's going on within their teams, just giving them that space to feel heard. So the executive board meets additionally on top of that. So they have weekly to bi-weekly executive meetings, just kind of making sure that they're prepared for the meetings that they have monthly with the rest of the group. And then especially Whitley will talk a little bit about the VPs of service, which we meet a little bit more frequently with them because we run a lot of our service through them. And then we also have a lot of SEC and Division I SAC opportunities that we get to offer our exec board members along with our representatives.
Yes, so as Emily mentioned, our VPs of selfless service are the ones that are the forefront of our service opportunities here at in our athletics department. And I want to put emphasis on all of our organizations are student-led. So they come to us about ideas or service projects, or even maybe other projects that they're interested in doing, and they build the foundation. We're there to help them, just see their dreams come true. So last year, we had over 1,400 hours of service, and again, student-led. So they put all this together, and it makes us really proud that we have we've groomed the student athletes to have those leadership styles, to be able to voice their ideas and see their ideas come into fruition. So another program that we do a lot of, like weekly, we'll have 3 sessions probably a week, is our Revved Up to Read reading program. So that is our reading program that allows our student athletes to visit 2nd grade classrooms and read to them and just teach them the importance of literacy and education. We'll visit over 17 elementary schools. And of course, they're all 2nd grade classrooms, and we'll donate over 1,400 books per year. And a lot of our student athletes, they'll contact the elementary schools and see what classrooms are interested. They'll follow up with them. They'll tell them the time, the date, and then we'll also put it on our this app that we use called Helper to get our student athletes to sign up to attend the classrooms. And then our students also, they're the ones that will pick up the books, take them to the elementary school, and just like make sure the students that haven't done the reading program before, that they know what to do. So it's pretty cool that we're able to have our student athletes run this program And it's very rare that we even have to visit the classrooms with them. Of course, at the beginning of the semester, if this is their first time doing it or their first time being VPs of selfless service, that's their first semester, we're there to help them. But they're pretty much like, we're pretty much hands off. So with all of our service projects, and it's a pretty cool opportunity for them, and we couldn't be more proud. But emphasis on student-led, all of our programs are student-led.
All right, and so along with that, we have another organization called We Cubed. So this stands for Women Encourage, Equip, and Empower. So that is their mission, is to encourage, equip, and empower and unify female student athletes at Texas A&M through mentoring and creating developmental opportunities. So this group was started in 2018. It actually just came about organically. It was initially a book club where female student athletes just kind of came together, and they felt really passionate to continue that in a bigger scale. So that's how We Cubed was formed, was just through that. So happened very organically. We had female student athletes that just felt really passionate about cultivating that and that community within our female student athlete population at A&M. So We Cubed also has their own executive board. So there are 4 student athletes that serve on the executive board. Their different roles are Director of Professional Development, Director of Marketing and Social Media, Director of Operations, and Director of Logistics. So they all have different responsibilities and roles within the exec board, which is great for them to have that just on a professional development level. They get to learn how to do and operate the logistics of coordinating events. So they get a little taste of what we get to do with our full-time jobs. So they have monthly events that they host for student athletes throughout the year. There is an emphasis on March just because it is Women's History Month. So they host events throughout the month. So each week they have at least one event. And throughout the year, they meet weekly with me as their advisor. So we kind of touch base each week on kind of what's coming up, what event do we need to prepare for, what is needed from me, but they do all the heavy lifting in terms of what they want, what kind of events they want to create. So I'm just there to make sure, that they have everything that they need. This year, there was a huge emphasis on the 50th anniversary of Title IX. So throughout the year, we were able to collaborate with our female staff a lot and host events that were not only for student athletes, but for staff, which was really special.
Our next student athlete led organization, we have Blueprint, which stands for Black Leaders Who Undertake Excellence. Their mission is to create a safe space for our Black student athletes to evolve them into change agents beyond competition. They want to make sure that they provide leadership opportunities, create educational experiences, and then build a sense of community within the student success. So Blueprint was founded in 2020 and by a group of student athletes. So like all of our student-led organizations have been founded by our student athletes with an idea, and we're there to be able to make sure that they see their idea through. So Blueprint is made up of 6 executive board members, and we have a president, vice president, chief of communication, chief of marketing, a business officer, and student athlete engagement officer. So within those leadership roles, we meet weekly. I meet with the president weekly as well, and sometimes multiple times a week to prepare for different events that we'll have throughout the month. Of course, like for Blueprint, we kind of run it a little bit different. We'll have team representation because within our program, of course, we don't have each team on our executive board group. So we'll have team reps attend our events, help with setup and everything. So it's kind of similar to SAC with the team representation. And they'll be the ones to really market the events that's going on and just give the teams an understanding of what Blueprint does and what Blueprint is about. Another thing, we'll have bi-weekly meetings. A lot of our meetings sometimes, like, because they're student athletes, they're in the evenings, and sometimes on weekends, but we just want to make sure that we make sure that we appreciate their time, because as student athletes, they barely have time. So just having them involved in this program is very, very, you know, we appreciate them for everything that they've done and put into. And each program that in meetings or events that they do, they come up with the ideas, they execute it, they market it on their social media platforms, and then they'll also get the event space that we need. So, and then we also have emphasis on the month of February, which is Black History Month. And then at the end of the school year, we always celebrate our student athletes' success, having a blueprint cookout for the whole athletic department.
Awesome. So now we're within the organizations, there's obviously a transition process. So we'll speak a little bit about what that looks like for us. And it's something that we're currently going through right now that we're kind of heading into the end of the semester and the academic year. So it can look a little bit different for each organization. So SAC, WeQ, Blueprint, it could look a little bit different, but we try to have consistency across how we're selecting our student leaders. So obviously there's a general application process to serve either as a team rep or serve on the executive board. So this process occurs kind of mid to late spring. So there's an initial application that we send out to all student athletes to apply to be in the organizations. We review those applications. And then after reviewing, we extend interview offers to those student athletes that have expressed interest. Those interviews are conducted by the executive board that are either going to graduate, are kind of leaving the executive board, and the advisor for that organization. So that's a great opportunity for student athletes to have experience running interviews, which has been really beneficial for them. We then go through and evaluate those applicants. After we kind of have an idea of who we would like to select, we make sure that we get approval from their scholastic supervisor and their coach, just to make sure that, you know, if they're saying something that we're not, that we're aware of it within their sport and especially within their academics. We want to make sure that that is first and there's no issues there. After we get their approval, then we go ahead and extend those offers to those student athletes. And then after, you know, they accept it, we have kind of like a transition meeting. So the previous exec board or those members kind of meet with the incoming executive board, just so they can kind of touch base with each other on kind of what the year looked like for them and what are some things to improve for next year. That way they kind of have an idea of what their role is going to be. And of course, they kind of get to use those student athletes as a resource for the next year. They have any questions on, hey, what did you do last year for this specific event? You know, they can kind of utilize those that are leaving the organization as a resource. So again, this process is mainly handled by the outgoing executive board. So we make sure that they feel equipped to make those decisions on who is going to be representing the organization in the next year. And then again, it looks a little bit different, but we try to provide as much consistency in that transition process across all of our leadership organizations. So just making sure that we're being fair across the board and everyone's having, you know, a good experience with that.
So going into how we advise our student leaders, my advising philosophy may be different from Emily's, but we both want to make sure that we're effectively communicating with our student leaders so that they can learn, like, okay, communication is definitely key to success or to a successful event. We want to hold them accountable. If they miss 3 executive board meetings, you're not on the executive board anymore. You miss 3 events with no communication, you're not on the executive board anymore. So it's just making sure we hold them accountable and just let them know the expectations from the beginning and what we expect of them. We also want to make sure that time management, managing their time, okay, looking at their team work schedule, wanting to know, okay, we can't meet at 3 p.m. on the day, okay, but we can meet at 5:30 p.m. because y'all will be out of practice. So just looking at the time that is available to them and trying to fit it into their schedule. Going through contingency plans. Okay, so if we have an event outside, what is the backup plan if the weather goes through? And literally we had to go through that this year. What is our contingency plan if the cookout gets rained on? And just evaluating them, making sure that they know we're watching at all times. We want you to be better. We want you to we want to challenge you to be better leaders. And then we want you to be able to execute all types of programming or things that you strive to want to do. So, and also at the end of the year, we always want to celebrate their success. So we'll bring all of our student leaders together and let them know that us as SAE, we appreciate them and appreciate the time and effort that they put into everything that they've done throughout the year, because they've done a lot as student athletes, doing your sport, school, and on top of that, being on the executive board of your organizations can be a lot. So we want to thank them for that. And then building their personal philosophies, like what is your philosophy? Where do you want to go? And how do you envision this helping you in your future? So having those conversations with them. And sometimes we'll have those hard conversations where you notice that your student athlete is not, being at their best. And we've had plenty of those conversations, and just them letting them know that we're here for them and they can communicate with us as much as they need, and just being a support system for them.
Awesome. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some tools for success and what we have found has worked for our organizations in terms of like the leadership development that they're receiving, some organizational resources that they have, and then additional leadership opportunities. So first of all, just with consistent leadership development, we try to make all of our executive board members feel like they're getting invested, that we're investing into their leadership. So we want them to feel kind of like a leadership cohort. So in the beginning of the year, we have a training for them where we, as you can see in the photo, we invite our executive board members into that training, and we go over kind of some best practices to have throughout the year. We do a DISC assessment, which is an assessment where they get to kind of find out what their style is in terms of leadership, or how they interact with other people in a group setting. And within that, they get to find out a lot about themselves, but also their teammates, right? So they're able to kind of know how to work with each other on the front end, and they get some insight on all the different personalities that they're gonna get to work with. Exposure to senior staff. So here in this photo, we have some senior staff members that attended our executive leadership training, and they were able to have some conversations on, what does it look like to be a leader? How did it, what was your path and, getting to where you are now? And then it's just a great networking piece for them to kind of get to know other staff members that work in our athletics department. We also go over some expectations that we have as advisors, and then we offer them a lot of resources, and we kind of go through what those resources are. Through this, executive leadership group, they also are able to kind of peer-to-peer talk to each other, mentor each other. We have all the way from sophomores to fifth-year seniors throughout our executive board. So they're able to kind of utilize each other as a resource, and just, peer-to-peer sometimes works better than advisor to student athlete. So we want to make sure that they feel like they have each other throughout the process. We also have one-on-one meetings with them just to make sure that everyone feels like they're getting what they need out of the organization, just from like a holistic level, but also personally, are you feeling like you're accomplishing your goals throughout the year. And then again, our executive board meetings, which we've talked about a little bit in this presentation. And then we also share with them some organizational resources. So Whitley kind of touched on this earlier, but we share with them how to do an after action review, which is our AAR. And that's something that our student athlete engagement team has kind of adopted over the past year. After events, we kind of instantly review, okay, what did we expect to happen? What went really well? What did not go well? And we need to improve for next year. What do we need to keep doing? So that's just a great way for them to kind of talk about, hey, how did the event go? Could I have done this better? Could we have done that? Or, this went really well. Let's keep doing that for the next event. So they're kind of knowledgeable about that. And so now throughout the year, it was pretty, secondhand nature now that they were able to do an AAR immediately after each event. They're like, okay, we got to do an AAR. We have some thoughts already, that kind of thing. Other things, just Google Drives and org email accounts. So each organization has their own email account that they utilize throughout the year to send out communication. That way everybody can see it and it's not on their personal emails. And so we found that kind of works for us because we're able to all have a look into what all the paperwork and documents that they've created in one place. We also utilize Helper, which is a platform that we used to only use for community service, but now we've used for our entire office in terms of student athletes signing up for events, RSVPing. We're able to take attendance through the app, which is really great. And that's something that the student athletes run when it comes to their events that they host. And then also social media. Each of our organizations have Instagram and Twitter. And so that's how a lot of student athletes know about their event. So they're in charge of managing those accounts and creating flyers and graphics and content for those social media accounts. And then other leadership opportunities. So the Aggie commitment is something that we have in our athletics department that our staff members are kind of like, we use them as a resource when we're trying to host events. Athletics Council, MSC Board of Directors, Title IX Working Group, and other cool invitations. So just using our resources within the athletics department and on campus and using staff as a resource throughout the year. And then again, like other campus organizations, we have a lot of student athletes that not only are participating in our organizations, but also on campus. So that's also a great tool to utilize throughout the year as well.
So how to apply this to your institution. So it's always steps. So each organization that we both advise, it all started with an idea. So within that idea, you have to create a proposal. So a proposal, you're going to have to an overview of the organization. What is the organization about? What are their goals? What is the mission? What is the purpose? Your pillars that you want to make sure that in each event that you have, you are hitting those points. And then what is your target audience? We want to know, like, who are you? Are they just for student athletes? Is it Black student athletes, women student athletes? What is your target audience when developing these organizations on your campus? How will you go about marketing and promoting this organization or the events that the organization will have? I can tell you at the beginning, sometimes you won't get 40 plus people to attend your events, but how do you make that better? How do you use social media and kind of figure out, like, what are the students using, or how can I, like, you ask your students, like, what are y'all using now? TikTok, all that stuff. So utilizing your resources to figure out how to market and promote, and then figuring out a budget, how much it's going to cost, what's the cost of the events that you want to put on. Sometimes all the events will be free. Utilizing your resources within the athletic department or within other departments on campus, and like figuring out, okay, can I utilize this area, or how much will this cost? If I want to bring food or anything to certain events, what's the cost going to look like? What is the full budget for the year? And then educational sessions. Again, that goes back to like what your mission and purpose is. You want to make sure that those sessions that you put together within your students' programming is educational, and not just something that you just want to put on. You want purpose behind each session. And then we're always checking with compliance. We use compliance all the time whenever we have questions, whether it's like, oh, we want to put on the event. Even our student athletes, like they'll want to create new organizations or ideas or do service projects, or partnering with other people off campus. And we always tell them to check with compliance to make sure that they're compliant and there won't be any issues in that area.
Yeah, and then just being able to develop your executive board. So what does that look like? So whenever we're talking about SAC and We Cubed and Blueprint, they all have like different titles. So what is needed within your organization to create those executive board positions? And then thinking through membership, do you want team reps? Do you want to just have the executive board? What's the need for that organization? And then what does the application process look like for executive board and representatives of the organization? So just thinking through that membership. And then also thinking through how is it going to sustain? That's a huge question. Sometimes you have student athletes that are passionate about a certain project. How is it going to sustain past them not being here anymore? So making sure that you're putting things in place for longevity. That way, it's not just something that just happened for one semester and then it kind of died down. That's why, we've put a huge emphasis on it being student-led and seeing what the student athletes or just students in general need at your institution. And then also just financial resources. Thinking through that and just being creative. How can you create a budget for these organizations? Where is that going to come from? Can you utilize some of the resources within your athletics department to kind of pour into these organizations? Can you use campus to kind of help you in this area? Just thinking through and being creative with those financial resources as well. And then lastly, here are just a few student athlete testimonials. We wanted to kind of end off our presentation with showing this slide because this is kind of why we do what we do, and just seeing through kind of what our student athletes said from all their different organizations with their experience. For example, Julia, our SAC president, talked about how she grew so much professionally through being in SAC, and her advisors pushed her to be the best leader, athlete, and student. Brian from Blueprint thought that it was very inspiring and impactful on his college experience being involved in this organization. Jada talked about how being in We Cubed really helped her get out of her comfort zone and find more of a voice there. And then Alexis Ortiz, she's our VP of Selfless Service within SAC. She gained a lot of professional and leadership skills that has helped her and empowered her to be successful. And she's confident that they'll be able to transfer into her career after college athletics. Ish from Blueprint talked about how he gained a lot of networking, public speaking opportunities, and just being able to be involved in the community as well. And then Caroline from We Cubed, she talked about how she being in We Cubed has given her the skills to grow in her professional life and share the Aggie core values that we have at Texas A&M. So this is just kind of great to hear from our student athletes, just to know that they're being invested in and they're growing a lot professionally. And these are, tools that they're gaining for their life after sport and what that can look like. All right, so that's the end of our presentation. We appreciate all of you for taking some time on your Friday to come and listen to what we have here at Texas A&M. And now we can open it up for questions if anybody has any.
Emily, I have a question. I'm going to put up a QR code just to do an evaluation for those that are viewing. But my question while I do that is, for transition, like Tradition Nights and Horizon Performance, those are not student-led programs. How do you guys get participation, or is like attendance mandatory? Like, how do you get the students to participate in that?
Well, I can kind of speak on Traditions Night, and then Whitley can kind of speak on what Emerging Leaders looks like for that. But Traditions Night, it ended up being a student-led, so it is something where they have their own executive or director board, they call it. So they're able to kind of have that within Traditions Night, so they kind of run all the logistics of it. But again, they do have an advisor that kind of serves in that role to help them throughout the year.
And then with Horizons, that isn't student-led, but how we go about getting our student athletes is we'll send out an application to where they can sign up for it. And then we also utilize like our freshman experience courses. We'll tell SAC, we'll tell all of our leadership groups to post it, and we'll have students sign up for it. And then each session is mandatory. They have to complete at least 5 sessions in order to receive their certificate at the end. So once they sign up for that commitment, they understand that they made that commitment and they're required to attend those required sessions. And then if they don't receive a certificate, but they're also, we give them the opportunity to, you know, try it again next year. Maybe this year was a big traveling year and they couldn't make every session, or vice versa. So we try to make sure that we're in constant communication with them also. But yes, it is required sessions, and we just try to make sure that, you know, and the sessions are in the evening. So a lot of times it'll be after dinner or during dinner, so that they're able to attend.
Yeah, and again, with the Emerging Leaders group, that's a, you know, very inclusive to, you know, all student athletes. So sometimes from that pool of student athletes that complete the program, that's who we kind of look for in the next years to be a part of like the executive boards for other organizations. I think Jasmine had a question in the chat. So what does the role or responsibilities look like for the student athlete engagement liaison for the executive board of SAC and Blueprint? So I can kind of speak for SAC, and then Whitley can kind of speak for the Blueprint executive board member in that role. So for the SAE liaison, currently we have a student athlete that meets with myself bi-weekly, just to kind of touch base on what are some events coming up. So she is in charge of, when the SAC meetings do happen, presenting on, hey, this is what our student athlete engagement office is doing throughout the month. Stay on the lookout for this. She also, within our SAC meetings, kind of does some professional development presentations. So she's kind of, you know, presented on LinkedIn. She's presented on a few resources that we utilize at A&M, such as Podium X, or we have something called the Aggie Athlete Network app as well. And then she just kind of is in charge of communicating that out to the SAC reps on, hey, here's how to get involved with the SAE office. So it's just someone that we utilize just to get the word out, just because she is a peer to other student athletes.
And similar to SAC, our Blueprint liaison, he's in charge of attending certain meetings. So he'll attend like our Aggie commitment meetings, where he'll voice out what kind of programming or what kind of staff support we're needing for our Blueprint event that we may be having that month. He'll also come to like our all department staff meetings and express different opportunities for staff to get involved, and just like spreading the word and making sure that everyone knows what Blueprint's about and what kind of sessions they're wanting. So a lot of the sessions they're wanting all student athletes to attend, and sometimes it's just student athletes, and sometimes we'll invite staff to attend. So he's in charge of that, and he's also in charge of running our meetings. Each meeting, he puts together the meeting invitations and itineraries, everything. So he's pretty much the glue that keeps Blueprint together. So
I Okay, and another question in the chat. She said, I'd love to hear about what kind of guidance or support you give your student workers around running social media accounts. So that is a great question, just because we want to make sure that their social media accounts have some sort of like consistency across the board and that they're being responsible with those social media accounts as well. So we're very open about it on the front end. So I mentioned the executive leadership training. We kind of have some rules and guidelines like, hey, make sure that you, for example, you are looking at what each other's pages are posting, make sure to promote the events and things like that. Sometimes we kind of meet with them a little bit more on the side just because they have a big responsibility with running the social media accounts. Sometimes they will kind of have other student athletes do takeovers on their social media accounts. So making sure that they have guidelines for it, but we ensure that we create kind of like a guideline for them. We like share passwords with them, that kind of thing. And then in order to make graphics, we have a Canva account for all of our student leaders to utilize together. That way they're sharing that account together and they can utilize that as a resource, which we use a lot in our office. But we always kind of make sure, hey, before you post this, like make sure you run it by us. Not because we don't necessarily trust them, it's just because we want to make sure that everything's accurate and the information is kind of up to date. But yeah, some things you do have to kind of make sure, like, hey, just check in with me before you post something. And even too, sometimes they'll receive kind of like messages within their Instagram accounts, and just making sure, like, hey, if you have a question about any of that, just to kind of let us know. But they're pretty responsible and good about keeping up with their social media accounts.